Today, I'm going to be talking about how to operate as a ghost within the Matrix, where you can be in this world, but not of this world. So what does that exactly mean? It means that when people look at who you are, like your person, you have some kind of name. And part of the initial awakening and realizing what the Matrix is realizing that this name that you were given at birth via a certificate bonded you to the government, which is controlled by the devil. And so part of even realizing where your 2 feet are standing is realizing that until you've taken that power back in trust, you're just not anywhere. You're still in the whole morass of the Matrix. You're still in it. It's not about money. It's not just about resources or being able to go whenever you want, or do whatever the fuck you want. It's about an understanding of this reality. And so I myself am speaking as someone who's done these steps. I have closed all my bank accounts. I don't have a footprint financially in the Matrix anymore. I don't own any property. I don't have a single penny to my name. Someone could do a PI investigation on me and they wouldn't find jack shit. And that's part of the start of how you operate as a ghost in the financial sense, because financially is part of the trap of the devil, where you're in that ecosystem of taxation, of slavery, of jumping through all these hoops and then filing and then telling them what you're doing, typically voluntarily. And so part of becoming a ghost is cutting those ties like a cancer, one by one. And that includes financial ties, but any assets that you have in your person's name, you need to get it out of there, because that person is tied to the devil, that corporate entity, that social security number, straw man, whatever you want to call it. So the more we can minimize the use of that, the less footprint you have and the less tie to that system that you have. And it was interesting, for some people it might have been easy, who've done this trust, to close all their accounts and just, get there. But for me, it actually took a little while. And for some people, it takes quite, a while, and most people will never do it. But that is to say that everyone starts somewhere. We all start cast into a situation where we're living in sin. I started in a situation where once I started to learn what it meant to operate in trust, and I looked at my portfolio of assets, and I also looked at my family's portfolio of assets, I started to realize how totally fucked our situation was in a certain regard. There's certain things that are tied up in accounts that they shouldn't be in. There's certain things that have lockups on them for years, with penalties on it. And had I known what I know now years ago, I would have definitely structured things completely differently. But at least for myself, thankfully, I never really got enough of a footprint where it was too difficult for me to start to sever those ties. And so one by one, I started cutting bank accounts. I started cutting brokerage accounts. Even cryptocurrencies, like that's very popping now because of Trump and the DOGE, the Department of Governmental Efficiency. I'm just loving the whole slave, politics show. It's just very entertaining. But as it relates to how we operate financially, we need to cut all ties with the devil, with the government. And so that starts with that basic awareness of what is the difference. And then when we have a private trust, we can start transferring all activities inside that. And that's how I live now, and how I've been living for quite a bit of time at this point, where I live completely in trust with Jesus Christ. A lot of people, so many of the HIPAA Christians in the Matrix will virtue signal about, trusting God and having that trust. And yet they don't actually do it when it comes to the law, the letter of the law, the common law of Jesus Christ. Who laid down the common law? It was Christ himself. But you're not going to follow it? You're going to follow the rules of the devil and jump through all these hoops? No. And so once you start carving away the cancer and those attachments, little by little, it's not like an instantaneous thing. You don't one day wake up and you're like, oh, I'm totally free. It's not really like that. It's a gradual progression where as you start to sever those ties one at a time, as you start to call back those assets into your trust and really give it all to God, give it all to Christ. Once you start calling that back one at a time, all of a sudden you start to see a renewed vitality and a renewed energy. And this is one of the things I've realized as I've started to venture out into the mountains here, is that as I've simplified my life and started cutting away these ties and cutting away all these accounts and these different assets and in these places where they made me a slave to the devil, I have more energy now. I have more awareness, and I have more of a spirit to fight for what I want in this life and what I believe in. And it's a very subtle thing that, when you're in the morass of the matrix, you don't really know how fucked you are until you start, doing the opposite. It's like you've been doing it for so long that, it's the process of being asleep. And that's the purpose of this life, is awakening. Karmic evolution only goes in one direction, which is forward. Every single second, every single day that goes by, every being on this planet is karmically progressing. In some way, even if it's maybe seemingly backward, in terms of your actions, but it's all a part of a pattern that is progressing us as a world forward. And it's weeding out and kind of straining us, and like a diamond, it's creating that pressure where certain individuals, the stress of it will just make them, it'll just make them realize that this world is not for them. And then they'll go on a path, and there are seasons in life, and it's about progression. And so it's not, a lot of people, they're grasping at resources, and they're thinking, oh, I need more money, and I need, all these different things in order to live a better life. But actually, it's a simplification. It's a calling back of awareness of where does your attention and energy lie. And for most people, it lies on a lot of things, a lot of bullshit things, And that's where their focus is all day, managing their petty little arsenal of things. And maybe they have a little bit of energy on top of that to hopefully do a little bit of good, whatever that means. But to really be an ultimate servant in this reality, the more you can carve away all that's unnecessary and replace that with the Spirit of Jesus Christ, that is what is going to get you to true fulfillment. And it's not about banging your drums and virtue signaling and like saying that to anyone you can. It's about doing something about it. It's about your karmic actions. And that is where, once you have established a trust, which if you haven't, join the Bulletproof Retirement community. I'm going to drop a link, and you can get all the details you need in there into how we start our trusts and where we source them from Liberty Aid Academy. But once you've started that trust, it's not just about having it. You can't just sign a piece of paper and then say, oh, now I'm good. No, it's about your actions from that moment on. And your actions, every moment we're standing here on this earth until we don't have any breath left. And so all those actions matter. And as you're trying to break away from the devil and the system that there is, really start being conscious of where your awareness lies. That's the one thing that I would encourage anybody, because part of freeing yourself and becoming, that ghost and just being able to, come in and out of the matrix whenever you want and have it not really affect you and then have that stain on you, part of that is realizing where your awareness lies, because most people's awareness lies in the matrix all day, every day. And so when you start calling it back outside of the matrix, it's kind of a weird thing, because it's been in there for so long that it feels uncomfortable. But that's when you really start understanding who you really are. And I've been calling my awareness back, as I've closed down all my accounts and taken all my assets and given everything to God. I've started to, make space for one thing, nature. And that's why I'm out here in the mountains. And pretty soon I'll be releasing more information about what I'm doing out here, but I'm trying to, prove that this trust is real, and just make a statement so definitive that, it's just, there can be no doubt that this is possible, and that this is possible for anyone. And you don't need some vast starting point. And, sometimes people come and they say, oh, well, this is a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money compared to what? Compared to being a slave every second, compared to, paying taxes every year. Like, what it costs to actually start this trust is so insignificant when it comes to money. It's really the psychology of it, because I guarantee anyone watching this has spent a lot more money on a lot more bullshit in your life. So really start looking at your awareness. Where does it lie, and where do you want it to lie? What is your goal? Like, who are you serving in this life? Are you serving the devil? Are you serving Christ? And who does Christ tell you to serve in this world too? Because that's another thing I asked myself as I started to call back all this awareness from all the bullshit and all these things that I was focused on. I started to ask, like, who do I want to serve? And not just like in a mystical sense. Like, obviously I'm a servant of Christ, but in terms of my daily actions, like, what am I actually doing here? And what am I doing in the mountains right now? And I'm here because there's animals and there's people that need me. And if I wasn't here, they'd be in a much more compromised position. And so now I wake up on a daily basis, and that's what I'm doing. And so hopefully many of you will be able to join me on that, mission soon. And for everyone else, I hope you kind of figure out this path as far as escaping, because winter is coming. Times look good now, and I don't want to get into this too much today, but winter is coming. And so those who want to get prepared and to be in this world but not of this world, and be able to use public accounts and operate in a public manner but still have yourself and your soul and your assets protected privately, then jump in the community, and I look forward to having discussions when you're there. And for the rest of you, good luck being a slave to the devil. Peace.